Let's play around and see what kind of shenanigans can be undertaken if the Stormcloaks win the Civil War for Skyrim. Hello there everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire, here with another quick tips for DMs, keeping up with our Clandestine Skyrim series. Today we're going to be engaging in a little bit of thought experiment, brainstorming, supposition kind of stuff. We are going to take some time to imagine what the aftermath of the Skyrim Civil War is going to look like if the Stormcloak Rebellion succeeds. What that means, what kind of position that leaves all the different players in, and what that can look like for all the kind of clandestine, cloak and dagger, information war kind of fighting campaign that you can put together for your players. So, what happens if the Stormcloaks win? Well, we have to know what the Stormcloak goals are. Secession from the Empire, Skyrim for the Nords. They want the Aldmeri Dominion out. Ideally, all the elves, because, supremacist faction, they don't like the elves, so they want the High Elves, the Dunmer, the Dark Elves, and the Bosmer, which are the Wild Elves, Wood Elves, gone out of their lands, ideally. Specifically the Dominion, though. They want the Dominion gone, so those can all be lumped into another point. Third, they want Talos worship back. They want to worship Talos again. Those are their big three goals. So what happens if they succeed? Well, if they've succeeded, that means the Dragonborn is on their side, because that's kind of the pivotal fulcrum on which this story is going to turn. It's the deciding factor for if the Empire is able to get Whiterun on their side and tip the scales further for victory for whichever side gets the Dragonborn. So Dragonborn joins them. What else does that do? Well, the Dragonborn is also pivotal in the Blades being revitalized, and the Thalmor dedicated a lot of time to hunting down the Blades, because the Blades are hardened warriors, they're also spies, they're also believers in Talos. The Blades are a significant threat, even on an individual basis, and now the Dragonborn has revitalized them and actively recruited new people. And not only that, because the Dragonborn can absorb dragon souls and learn the different dragon shouts, learn the dragon language, that's a significant, powerful force right there in and of itself. And they're also able to gather up all those dragon bones and make dragon bone weapons and armor, which is going to make these deadly warriors an even more significant threat, especially if it's all getting enchanted, because bear in mind, depending on the stories and tales that you listen to, the Dragonborn might have become the master of the Mages College in Winterhold, or she may have become the harbinger for the companions. Some stories even say the Dragonborn became the master of the Thieves Guild and got into the good graces of the Daedric Prince in charge of that. But that all just sort of depends on the stories there. Sometimes some even say that the Dragonborn accomplished all of those things and more. So the Dragonborn is not an insignificant threat, although it does present an interesting conundrum if the Dragonborn was an Altmer, a High Elf. That kind of conflicts with, well, the anti-elf sentiments of the Stormcloaks, but most supremacist factions, historical and otherwise, they don't mind a little bit of contradiction, not if it means that they are able to absorb that power and make use of it. And the Dragonborn is powerful, and the Blades are another powerful asset to have on board, so they'd probably let that slide in exchange for all the power that the Dragonborn wields, and the fact that the Dragonborn fought on the side of the Stormcloaks to help make this happen to begin with. So that leaves the Nords in a better position than what the Empire's in, because whether it's a good victory, a decisive victory, where some to very fewer than expected forces had to be expended to drive out the Imperials, it's going to still leave them in a better spot than what the Imperials are at, because think about what the Imperials lose. Not only are they losing a province full of hardened warriors, a group of people that make for incredibly hardened warriors, but General Tullius dies. Also, the Imperial garrisons that they sent up there, the armed forces to do all that, all of those loyalists that are inside of Skyrim, that's gone. At best, the lords of loyalist towns and cities, their thanes, anybody that is going to keep their allegiance with the Empire, they're at best hostages if they didn't die in the fighting. And so that's that's leverage that Ulfric gets to have in place when negotiating with the Empire, and that's what the Empire is going to be left at doing because, well, now they have to conserve whatever strength they have left to either fend off the Nords, which they're not likely to move out, or most likely fend off the Thalmor. They have to concentrate and make good use of whatever strength they have left. And General Tullius, you can argue, is probably one of the smartest people in Skyrim at this point, able to envision the larger, not just the battlefield and battlegrounds in Skyrim, but the larger socio-political implications of the fighting as well. Like, he has a pretty good understanding of where the Thalmor are at and what they're planning, or at least the gist of what they're planning. So with him gone, the Empire is going to be, the Imperial armies are going to be managed worse. Don't forget the assassins, the Brotherhood, the worshippers of Sithis and the Dark Mother. They kill the Emperor's cousin. They kill the currently reigning Emperor in Skyrim. Like, that's canonical as well. Whether the Dragonborn had a hand in that or not, you can't prove any of that. Doesn't matter. The Emperor's dead. One of his blood relatives is dead. That throws the whole chain of succession into all kinds of disarray. So with one of their best generals dead and the Emperor, there's probably going to be a succession crisis. There's going to be people jockeying for position back at the Imperial capital to try to put their name forward. Or if it's not their name, their favored heir or candidate for heir forward. They're going to push for... Some are going to push for the Empire's benefit. They're going to try to put the best person forward. Some are going to be putting forward the best person for them personally, or for their faction at least. That's going to cause all kinds of logistical problems on top of all the military problems that they now have to deal with. The Thalmor are going to know all of this. Part of how they're going to know all of this is the fact that they have agents all over through Skyrim and in Cyrodiil too, all there to help keep suppressing Talos worship. So they're absolutely going to be aware of this. Hell, you could probably make an argument that the Thalmor, the Aldmeri Dominion, they're probably the ones that hired the assassins to begin with, to take out the Emperor. It benefits them entirely. You don't know for sure, but lines up pretty nicely for them with their goals of trying to keep the Empire weak. And the Thalmor, for that matter, I don't think they wanted the Stormcloaks to win. I think they wanted them to be supplied just enough that they could keep this war going for a couple of years, maybe even a decade. A decade of war would be devastating for both Skyrim and the Empire and make them both easy pickings, but that's not where the chips fell. Nobody could have expected Alduin coming back and the Dragonborn being, well, discovered, and then also those accursed blades coming back. That's not ideal. And they're in Skyrim. So Skyrim's going to be the harder of the two enemies to fight. So the Thalmor, my guess would offer peace terms. And what would they offer the Stormcloaks? Well, the Stormcloaks have driven out the Imperials, but the elves are still there and attacking the Thalmor embassy. That's going to cause problems. Like, that's going to start a fight, because the Thalmor can't just let one of their embassies be attacked. I mean, that is a direct challenge to their power, and if they let it slide, well, that's going to cause questions, both at home and also abroad. So, rather than let that happen, thinking further down the line, assuming they're thinking further down the line, they go, you know what? We'll retreat. We'll even bring out the Dunmer, we'll bring out the Bosmer and other high elves that we can't force them, but we'll try to bring them out. As many as we can, make it easier on you, and you know what? We'll even let you worship Talos. Our agreement was with the Empire. They're the ones that aren't supposed to engage in Talos worship. We're not really interested in fighting you right now. We'll leave. You can even worship Talos when we leave. And that ticks all three boxes for Ulfric. he doesn't have a reason to be fighting anymore. Sure, be suspicious of the elves, help, prod people along at the end of a sword or a spear so that they leave faster, but he's not in a position where he can exactly pick a fight with the Dominion. Like, the Dominion was still strong enough to have come out on top of the last war, and sure, the Nord forces were not as diminished as the Imperial forces, but they still went through a lot of fighting, and now it just gotten done with a very nasty civil war that was devastating to both the Empire and Skyrim. Doubly so for Skyrim, because for all the talk people have about, wanting to do a civil war kind of a thing, it's really messy for all sides because you're fighting on your home turf, and your home turf is where all your infrastructure's at, all your craftspeople, all your soldiers, all of that gets kind of ruined in that wake. And not only that, after you take the dirt, you're on to the hard part. The war is not necessarily the hard part, it's holding on to the dirt afterwards, as awful as all of that sounds, because war is worse than hell, but it's usually the aftermath and trying to keep control of everything that usually has the greater toll in lives, usually. So, the Stormcloaks, they gotta make sure that they have loyal, capable garrisons in the towns that were previously loyal to Thanes and lords that were loyal to the Empire. They have to garrison those. They have to make sure that they stay actually under their control. Not only that, but they need to make sure that their border forts and outposts are staffed and guarded so that the Empire doesn't have an easy way back in some desperate attempt to try to retake Skyrim and bring that back under the fold. So they have to hold their territory against any foreign invasion. They have to hold it against any loyalist partisan movements that might spring up. They have to make sure that the Thalmor are actually staying out. That's going to take a lot of time, a lot of manpower. Rebuilding is going to take a lot of time, and there are parts of Skyrim that, even before the fighting starts, don't look great, look like they've kind of been crumbling a little bit. They're going to have to rebuild a lot of that. So, Skyrim, the Stormcloaks, the Dragonborn, they're going to be busy as it is. The Thalmor don't have to worry about them, while the Empire's pretty weakened after this. They don't have the Blades, they don't have the Dragonborn, they just lost Skyrim, they just lost General Tullius, they've lost those garrisons and a significant portion of their forces in Skyrim. They're in a pretty good position to start taking Imperial territories back, and better yet, they know better than to extend themselves now. They can put more of their troops down towards securing the parts of Hammerfell that they took. They can start retaking bits and pieces of border territories along the Empire, Cyrodiil, and taking raiding actions, attacking different little towns, and just testing and measuring and seeing exactly how the Empire is going to act. Because remember, they're also down an emperor, and there's probably a lot of political factional infighting there at the capital. So they're not going to be organized and moving out at all, at least not effectively. It's going to be disorganized and disjointed, whereas the Thalmor, the Aldmeri Dominion, all the fighting has been out of their territory, and they've gotten a lot of loot out of these different places. So they're going to be more flush with gold and resources and all the manpower that they could hope to have for all their fighting. They haven't had to do any of this fighting while this civil war was going on, or at least very minimally, small little agent actions here and there, justiciars and Inquisitors hunting down Talos worshippers. They didn't lose a significant amount of manpower and material in this area, not like the Nords and the Imperials did. So they're in a good spot to start picking at the weaker of the two there. And after they take that, well, now they have better inroads to dealing with Hammerfell and cutting off the rest of them. And they also have alliances with the Dunmer and Morrowind, and also the Bosmer in their territories. So they're not looking too bad on the world stage. I mean, if I remember right, I think even Morrowind might have been parts of it might have been part of the Aldmeri Dominion. But regardless, they're still looking like they're in a good position at the end of all this. And there's plenty of clandestine activity here already. All the jockeying for position at the Imperial capital in Cyrodiil. There's going to be plenty of people trying to make assassination attempts, trying to forge documents, present writs of showing, connections to different royal bloodlines to try to elevate status and position and make their candidate for the imperial seat look better. There's going to be a scramble to try to get troops trained up and ready. The Thalmor are going to have their spies acting within Cyrodiil. The Imperials in Cyrodiil are going to be having their counter operations going against the Thalmor. The Nords are going to be busy trying to build up their own defenses and their own spy network back, but they're going to be in a better position because the Dragonborn and the Blades are going to be present, and two of the oldest members of the surviving members of the Blades are some of their brightest, most educated, and probably the most familiar with all the spycraft kind of stuff that they could ever hope to want to put their own information network and counterintelligence networks into place to try to deal with the Thalmor and the Aldmeri Dominion's operations, which, again, they're probably not going to be as heavily invested as dealing with the Nords. Probably enough that they can gather information, see troop movements, their dispositions and the like. They'll keep an eye on them, certainly, but it's going to be more a matter of the Nords, the Stormcloaks, trying to blind the Thalmor and keep them from gathering information, while the Thalmor are actively going to be trying to get their spies in place in order to make sure they're kept appraised of what the Stormcloaks are doing. Keep them from riding down south to strike at them while they're attacking the Empire. I doubt the Stormcloaks will want to help the Empire, but if the Thalmor are at risk of overextending again, well, maybe the Stormcloaks see an opportunity, especially with the Dragonborn helping. Maybe they try to ride down fast and hit the Thalmor in the flank, cut them off from their supplies again, and then the Imperials and the Stormcloaks destroy them both, and then, potentially maybe the Stormcloaks make a move for the Somerset Isles, or they hit the Imperials to try to kick them while they're down and keep them out of Skyrim for good. There's lots of different angles that you can take this. From here, the further out you go, the more murky things get, because this move depends on that move, which makes this move more likely impossible. On and on like that. But you can still see how, just by playing around with this and thinking about it a little bit, what the goals of the Stormcloaks are, what the goals of the Dominion and the Empire are, figuring out what those things are, if those goals are met, what failures were met, what all has happened. You can start to put these pieces together in logical chains that you can build all of these cloak and dagger style stories out of them and still keep things incredibly exciting and tense for your players. And not only that, showing them that it's not just through combat that they can have an incredible impact on the world around them. Sometimes it's a precise set of words. Sometimes it's changing a document, the information on a document, swapping things out. Because if the Thalmor are trying to keep an eye on what the Stormcloaks are doing, and the Stormcloaks' biggest interest is trying to blind the Thalmor, trick them, well, they just need to learn who the Thalmor spies are, find their dead drops, swap them around, so that way they're getting the wrong information back and not knowing until it's too late that their network's been compromised or parts of their network have been compromised. So yeah, lots of interesting things that you can do there. But what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Like I said, let me know either way. Hit those like or dislike buttons. And if you've made it this far, why not go down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamers Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Thank you all so very much for your time, and good gaming to you all, and you all have yourselves a good night.